Check, check, check. Episode 3, the last chapter. Let's go! What's up, everybody out there in listener land? This is the Real Dealz podcast, and I am your host, Tucker Merrihew. I'm glad to have you back. I'm glad to be back again on the microphone. I got episode number 3 here, the last chapter. I meant to get this episode out last week, but life just kind of got in the way. I actually just got back from Breckenridge, Colorado. I spent a week there, did kind of an annual ski trip that I do now. I take the kiddos, and I go snowboarding, of course, and they're skiing because they're younger right now, but we just try and take them to snow once a year so that they can remember what it looks like, since we live on the beach in the tropics for, the vast majority of the year right now. So I kind of ran short on time. But with that said, I wanted to make sure that I put out a great episode as well, and I didn't just hurry one out before I, hit the door and flew over to Breckenridge in Colorado. But I'm back, and so now I've got a great episode for you guys this week. I got a couple of really good topics. I'm going to talk about market stuff because it seems to be a very fluid situation right now, that's for sure. And then I want to talk about, kind of some life stuff, in this business, and just the traps that we fall into, the things that we're enamored with, and, maybe from an old guy like myself, or I should say older. I don't know if I'm old yet, but older than most of the folks out there, and kind of the influencer, kind of put yourself out there space. I might have a little bit of advice that, might resonate with some of you guys. So hopefully it does. But before I get into all that, just wanted to kind of make mention of a few other things. Number one is I'll actually be back in Oregon this next week. A lot of travel this month, that's for sure. But I'm flying all the way back there. I actually sold my last house that I own there. And so I've got to go get a couple of things, personal items out of there. And then got to make sure that we sign up all the paperwork and kind of get that thing wrapped up. So I'm excited to be done with that. It was a great house. It served a great purpose. It was kind of my, in case this whole Florida adventure didn't work out, I'll keep it. And obviously it did work out. And so I just don't have a whole lot of reason to keep a house there that maybe I'm only, in town for a week, a year. At this point, obviously I still have family there, and I enjoy going back and visiting them, but I just can't justify keeping a house there with the amount of equity that house has in it. Just not going to do it. So we got the number we wanted, and it's time to sell it. So we're moving on with that. The other thing I want to mention is, we came down here to Naples, and it's really just a cool place because it's kind of like a Jimmy Buffett lifestyle that everybody lives. And, for the longest time, though, it's been a small town. It's growing quickly now. And over the course of that time, there's been a lot of people that have kind of been in power and small government, and they've just kind of been able to do whatever they wanted, mainly because most of the people down here, they don't fight much. But they also have a lot of faith, let's call it, in small government, or even school boards for that matter. Whereas where I'm from, in Oregon and Portland, Lake Oswego, whatever, you have very little faith, or some people do, but I had very little faith in the local government there, just because they continually screwed things up right and left. And so, when we moved here, I was able to kind of quit fighting for a while, which was a nice thing. It really was, because I felt like I was fighting every day for years and years and years when I lived in Oregon. And I will say that is not a healthy, it's not a healthy way to live. That's for sure. But in moving here and not really having much of a fight to deal with, whether it be from the city about trees, neighbors, whatever, very minimal. I mean, it hasn't been perfect, but it's been very minimal compared to what it was. We had a situation where the school board here was trying to rezone certain areas to send kids to certain schools and basically plug holes and solve problems. And anyway, I guess I just like to fight a little bit, because we kind of got into this whole thing, and it looks like we may have won. But at the beginning, everybody was like, oh, they just do what they want here, and, whatever. And turns out that's not true. I guess enough people move here that are used to fighting. We'll call it the good old boy network of things that used to get done. Doesn't get done as easy. So we're making some changes here, and hopefully for the better, and hopefully we're teaching some people how to stand up and say, hey, you know what, whatever you're doing ain't working, so we got to rework whatever your plan is. So we had a big win this week in terms of tackling the school board to kind of prevent the rezoning that was going on around here, which I'm pretty proud of, considering that, we haven't fought in a while, but, sometimes you got to dust off the, I guess, the things that you use to fight, which is really not your fists when it comes to this kind of stuff. It's more about, the pen and the pad, which, what they say is often more mightier than the sword, which in this case it definitely was. So I'm excited about that. The other thing I want to mention real quick is that we're rounding the corner on an awesome remodel. It's about a half block from the ocean. I think we're going to sell this guy. The comps are starting to look a little more favorable. I thought maybe we'd have to keep this one because the market got a little soft there for a while, but comps look favorable, and I think this thing, once it's done, it's going to be a really, really cool house. And it'll be one that we kind of designed from the very beginning, and I'm excited to see what it turns into. So I'll shoot a few videos on my social media, kind of show you guys the progress on that, but it's going to be a really cool house. It'll be 3 beds, 2 baths, about 1,700 square feet, awesome pool, about a half block from the ocean, like I said, and everything will be new. So we're going to really test the market here with a, we'll call it kind of a tweener product. It's not new construction, but it's basically all new. It's a full gut renovation, new everything with the exception of the shell. And we're going to see what kind of, pricing we can get for something like that. And, we'll kind of make a decision moving forward from there as to, where the sweet spot is in the market, given, all the things that's going on with the market right now, which I'll talk about more in the next segment. So that's pretty much what's going on with me. Last announcement I wanted to make before we get into the main topics is if any of you out there in listener land are looking to put any money to work, we are actively looking for the right capital partners right now to do some more of these renovation projects and also some of our higher dollar new construction that we'd like to do. Obviously, we like to cherry pick our projects, but we'd like to, partner with the right capital partners moving forward with these things. So if you're interested at all, go ahead and email us or reach out to us, info@therealdealspodcast.com. And Dan will probably get back to you initially, and then he'll connect you to me, and we can chat some more. So that's pretty much the announcements. That's all I got for you. So let's get into the main topics. All right. First thing I want to talk about this week is obviously the market again. It's just such a fluid, dynamic situation right now. And, to be totally honest with you, I'm watching it every single day. And the thing that I'm watching the most that really is the tell in my mind in terms of when the market will kind of hit its inflection point is what's absorbing day in and day out, right? You can put a number to it and call it the absorption rate for any given area, but I don't really care necessarily what that hard number looks like. I like to kind of visually look at an area, from like an overhead view, and a great tool for that is like Redfin, right? So you can go on Redfin, you can pick a neighborhood or an area, part of town, and then you can, overlay, okay, do you want to look at everything active, everything that's, on the market, or do you want to look at everything that's pending, or do you want to look at both? And I'll look at everything at first, and then I'll trim out the actives and just look at the pendings and vice versa, and just kind of see, on a daily basis what's absorbing in any of these given areas. And that really gives me a pretty firm grasp of, how quickly product is absorbing and what product is absorbing, right? Is it product that, they had to reduce price a bunch, or is it one that's been on market, they haven't reduced, or is it one that just came on market and went, pending lickety split? All those things can kind of tell you a lot about where the market is right at this point in time. And so I will say that we've had significantly more activity within the last week here in Naples specifically. We actually had a couple of offers on one of our new construction projects. I still feel like the people that are coming in to offer on a lot of new construction are just simply value buyers that feel like, they should be given, a rather decent discount or a large discount, let's say, for being in the market right now. I think that will start to dissipate with time, but that's usually the front edge of buyers kind of coming back and, they just want to kind of reward themselves as much as they can for being, active at a time when not everybody is, which makes sense. I don't fault them for it. But I do feel like we're kind of on the knuckle of maybe more buyers returning to the market that aren't just straight value buyers, which is what's been there for the most part, in the new construction price ranges here in Naples and in other markets as well that I know of over the last, few months. So the good news is we have had a significant uptick in activity here. I will say that I have talked to a number of other builders, both back in the Northwest and here, and just kind of got their feedback on how they're navigating things right now. And one of the best pieces of advice I got, I guess, was, anything that's an A+ location, they're holding pretty strong on their prices. If it's a B location or less, let's say, then they're making deals right now, just trying to move inventory and get stuff gone. And so for me, we always try and buy A locations. I really don't like doing projects in B locations, but that's probably good advice. The other thing is that the dynamic of this market is it's very splintered, and I've said this before, but I think it's important to say it again, is that certain product moves a lot easier than others. And so when you have a neighborhood where new construction is kind of the high price point for that neighborhood, and the neighborhood can absorb and allow for new construction to get built and be sold, you're not getting that top dollar on new construction in most markets right now. You're getting value buyers that are wanting to buy something at a lesser price than what the builder wants to sell it for, ideally. But in those same neighborhoods, the remodel product, that's a well done renovation product, seems to be posting high numbers. And so my personal house in Lake Oswego is a good example of that. The other one that we're renovating right now that we're going to finish up is a good example of that, although we haven't put it to market yet to proof it. I have seen other stuff that is posting prices that are rather high comparatively than when you look at new construction, where it seems like there's just a lot of value buyers out there for that, for the most part. So it's a very splintered market. As you step down in price point and you get, cheaper, more entry-level stuff, that stuff always sells. So that's not really that's a pretty simple market to analyze. Turnkey, entry-level price points, what else can you say, right? It's cheap, it's clean, it's new, it's pretty easy to sell. It's when you start climbing the price ladder that your understanding of the market and the different product types and how they move and who buys them, you have to elevate your game a little bit to understand real estate a little better. You can't just be, an entry-level housing supplier, because that's just, it's kind of like, second grade math versus, AP calculus, right? It's just different, not a knock on it. It's just, everybody knows entry-level product that's redone, just decent will sell. But when you start to move up in price point and move up in the product types that you're building or creating, then you just have to know a little bit more. So something to think on there. But the last thing I wanted to mention is, this last week has been really interesting in terms of what's going to happen with the Fed funds rate over the course of, this year. And at the beginning of the year, as I mentioned in the last show, there was a whole lot of, probably a 90% chance of cuts would start in March. And now, over the past few days here, I've seen a number of articles out there that actually support a position that maybe the Fed doesn't even cut rates at all in 2024. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I will say I won't be totally surprised if that is the case and they don't end up cutting rates until, at the soonest, maybe the very end of the year, and then maybe not at all. And if that happens, I don't really know what that's going to do to the real estate market. I think the, that tweener product that I mentioned will stay strong. I think new construction will continue to kind of settle price-wise. And then, those people that are then buying the dirt on the other end, there may be some repositioning there in terms of what they want to pay for stuff, depending on the neighborhood and depending on, how mature the neighborhood is that they're building in. I know there's some areas where, people are paying a lot more for dirt right now than they did a year ago. And that might just be because that neighborhood had more room to run, or there's any number of reasons why that could happen. But in most, established infill areas, I think the dirt prices are going to continue to compress a little bit because your overall build costs aren't going down that much. And if the new construction, sales side is still a little soft, especially when you get outside of that, median kind of, cheaper price points, I think that's going to continue to compress things a little bit. And so if they don't lower rates, I think that's the segment of the market, at least for residential, that's probably going to be the most affected as we move forward. But I don't know, keep tabs on it. That's what I'm seeing out there. And so I'm kind of trying to plan accordingly. So that's my take on the market this week. If you guys have any other feedback or anything else interesting, feel free to reach out to us. But, I try and look at this stuff every day and be as unbiased as I can about it. I'm not trying to drink my own Kool-Aid and think that I'm going to sell all of our projects because they're just amazing, which they are. But at the same time, market forces are much stronger than anything else most of the time. So anyway, that's what I got for you this week. All right, the other main topic that I want to talk about this week, at the risk of kind of sounding like, an armchair quarterback and old man time here, or, father time, I guess I should say, is, why we get into this business, right? Why we get into the real estate business, why you get in business, period. Why do you try and make a lot of money? Why do you try and, create success? Why do you want to have a big organization, generates all of this revenue and hopefully allows you to keep a lot of that money? Like, why do you want these things, right? And, when I was younger, I think you just want recognition, you want notoriety, you want, the ability to do some crazy things like fly private and, stuff like that, which, I've now done that, along with a number of other things, but you want those things, right? And, there's nothing wrong with having those things, appeal to you. I mean, especially, I'll tell you what, coming back from Colorado this week, Denver International Airport was a shit show, let me tell you, for security. And I was like, man, if there's any way to just hop on a private plane right now and not have to deal with any of this, it would have been lovely. But anyway, back to my point is that, why you get into this business. And there's a lot of influencers out there that have kind of created their marketing plan around the flash, right? The flash is kind of the important thing that grabs you and makes you want the lifestyle that they're conveying to you, whether that be on social media or watching their videos or emails or whatever it is. And so they sell you that dream, right? Which, and it's not just in real estate, it's in other stuff too. That dream of financial freedom, so to speak, which usually then, comes along with like a Lambo and some other, crazy watches and designer clothes and some sort of, just ridiculous stuff, right? That, you see it and you're like, oh my God, like, whatever. And so, when I was younger, I think a lot of that stuff appealed to me a lot more than it does now. And so I just wanted to kind of give you my take on it. And, just so we can kind of know where I'm coming from. I mean, I know I do, but so that you guys know where I'm coming from. I mean, I've had, paid cash for brand new sports cars that, I ordered from the factory, which, in hindsight, I don't know if that was the smartest thing in the world, but I wanted that experience. So I did it, right? I've lived in houses that were, big houses, 55, 6,500 square footers, indoor basketball court, giant pools, 6-car garages, things like that, which it just sounds kind of dumb even saying that right now when I hear it. But, the truth is at the time, I thought that's what everybody wanted, right? I thought that's what you ultimately chase. And, my joke with my wife is that, when we sold our last big house in Lake Oswego, we moved here to Florida, or we downsized first to, I guess, a smaller ranch, and then we moved here. I said, I think we've just like cycled 20 years earlier than most people do, right? Because most people sell the big house by the time they get to, about 60 and their kids move out and, whatever. But I'm glad that I did cycle a little bit earlier and I kind of went through all that, because now I've come to realize that, none of that really means much. And I would never live in a big house again, to be totally honest with you. I like the house that we have now. It's fairly modest. It wasn't a cheap house. It's in a great area, but it's, 2,700 square feet. And it's awesome. It's all that I would ever need. I would never want to go back to a 5,500, 6,500 square foot house. It's just too big. It's too much. But, again, I thought that that's what I wanted. And then I realized that that's not really the best use of your money for, achieving happiness, let's say, right? And neither is, maybe some of you guys really love expensive watches and, maybe some of you guys like to wear Louis Vuitton, whatever, belts and shoes and all kinds of stuff, spend your money on that. Maybe you just like that and whatever. That's great. And maybe some of you guys really like, sports cars, Lambos and Ferraris and whatever. Maybe you do. And if you do, fantastic. But, I came to realize that I thought that I liked those things a lot more than I really did after I had them. And so now for me, whenever I see, influencers out there, they're usually younger for the most part, that are kind of baiting, people in this space to, follow them, buy stuff from them, whatever. And they use that mantra. Again, I understand why it's used, because it attracts a lot of people, but I'm here to tell you that it shouldn't be the thing that really attracts you. Because once you have all those things, you come to realize that you don't need all those things. And honestly, you don't really want all those things after you have them. Your marginal benefit of happiness for one more of those things is very small, right? It's I forget which economic theory it is, but as you have more and more things, or your house gets bigger and bigger, each additional unit of bigger or better, you generate less happiness from it. And there's definitely a point where it's fairly meaningless. And so, at this point in my life, I think that the best that you can do in terms of, if you want success and you want to make money and you want to do all those things, that's great. I'm with you. I'm in the same boat. But I would rather spend the money that I'm able to create on buying time and experiences, whether it be for me or my family or my kids, as opposed to just buying them a lot of shit. I definitely don't think that's a good idea either, but that's a whole nother topic. But, buying that time and buying those experiences, whatever it is, right? Experience could be, I don't want to come to work today. I'm going to go hang out on the beach and, whatever. Or I'm going to go fishing, or I'm going to go, whatever it is that I want to do, right? That's an experience, but that's also time. And so those are kind of, intertwined. But the other thing is, buying great people into your organization, right? So instead of going and spending all this money on yourself and these big houses and, these big leases on sports cars, because nobody really pays cash for them for the most part, everybody leases them. You could take that money and you could invest in better people for your organization. And if you do that, then you're going to ultimately have a much better organization at the end of the year or the end of the day, because now you've got these much better people to kind of help you run it. And so I see a lot of people kind of make that mistake. They go buy all these things, or they overwhelm themselves with the debt service on a lot of these things that they think they want, because they watch some influencer that tells them that if they flip 50 houses a month, they can have all this stuff. And then once you sort of get part of the way there and you kind of start layering on all these additional, responsibilities or things that you thought you wanted, then you get to a point where you're like, well, shit, do I even really want all this? And maybe some of you do, but I'm telling you from my experience, I didn't find a whole lot of additional happiness in all those things. I found a lot more happiness in just, achieving things that I wanted to achieve, or building a company with a great culture, or having great people around me that work with me on a daily basis. And that's been way more rewarding than any house that I lived in, or any car that I owned, or anything like that. So anyway, that's my take on this whole thing called success that we're chasing. Just, if you're chasing it, great, but just, take a step back every now and again and just look at why it is you're chasing. Like, what is it that you want out of it? And if it's just self-fulfillment, that's fine. But I'll tell you what, you'll be, if you're doing well in your 30s, to mid 30s, instead of buying all that shit, just, reinvest a lot of it, right? And then by the time you're my age, which sounds old now, 44, you can have a lot of real estate paid off, and you can have a lot of cash flow from that, and you can have a lot of cash cushion in the bank, and you can do whatever the hell you want most days. And if that's work, great. If it's not, great. But you have that choice, and you can kind of create experiences and use your time how you want to, which is really what I think makes for the most happiness in life. So anyway, that's my take on father time here on life and the different experiences, and just kind of watch out for that stuff whenever somebody puts that in front of you, and that's the mechanism to try and get you to buy. They know why they're putting that out there, but maybe those people they're stuck in the hamster wheel trap too, right? And they haven't figured that out either, and that's probably the case if that's what they're using to try and attract you. Either that, or they just they're just kind of soulless internet marketers, which there are a lot of those too. So don't forget about that. That's for sure. But hopefully there's a little bit of wisdom in that. You guys can take little pieces of it and apply it to your life, and hopefully make it better. All right, so that pretty much wraps up this episode. A couple of the things that I want to mention, though, as I did in the last episode, kind of a shout out to, we'll call them the good guys of this business. And, good guys is an arbitrary term, but people that, they are who they are unapologetically, and they run a good business. And ultimately, I just think they're good people. And so this week, I want to shout out to a fellow that I've known for a long time, and I know I made fun of Texas in the last show, so I have to actually say, good things about Texas in this show. There's a lot of guys there that I know that are really, really solid dudes, but, one guy in particular that probably many of you know that, pay attention to, kind of the influencer space, let's call it, is Corey Thompson. And he's about as real of a dude as you can get, which is hard to find in this space. It's just hard to find. And so, whether you enjoy his humor or you don't, that's up to you. I personally enjoy it. I think it's funny as hell most of the time. But more importantly, he's about as honest of a dude as you'll find. And, if he says he's doing something, he's doing it. And he's not one of those guys that's going to try and market to you with some of the things that we talked about in this episode. He's gonna market to you with the realness of this business, which sometimes isn't the most glamorous part of this business, which is why oftentimes, influencer space people don't use that, as their marketing tactics or topics to discuss or whatever it is. So anyway, shout out to Corey. He's a good dude, highly entertaining. If you guys like, crude, rude humor, he's definitely your dude, and that's right up my alley. So obviously I find him hilarious most of the time. So anyway, go check him out. Last but not least, if any of you are interested in joining our Deal Finders Academy, it is still rocking and rolling. We've been about 10 years going now with our online mastermind group. So if you're interested at all in that, reach out to us, thedealfindersacademy.com, and you'll talk to Dan, and we can see if it's a good fit for you. But we got a lot of really amazing people in there as well, just like I mentioned from last week, and just a lot of people that have been in there for better part of a decade. It's been a great place to meet people, get connected, and just see what some other major players in this business are doing, day in and day out. So anyway, reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Other than that wraps up this week's show. I will see you guys probably on the next one once I am back from Oregon doing everything that I need to do there. And I'll have another good show for you. See you then.